The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Stats by Will and Jim, a college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. I'm your host, Jim Root, joined as always by Will Warren, and we are proudly a part of Basket Under Review, the very best college basketball community on the internet. Please check out the site and the Discord if you have not yet. Only $10 a month gets you access to all kinds of written content, region previews from all of the brilliant writers. I believe we've got one by Jordan Majeski, one by Will Warren, one by Matthew Winnick, and one by Brian Ralph. So every single region is broken down for you there on Basket Under Review. We've got our Ticket Punch series with every single team that won an auto bid. That is, I believe all 31 are now live. So if you want to learn about one of those mid-major teams, or hey, you're a Purdue fan, you just want to read a little more about Purdue, that's up there as well. You've also got the Basket Under Review podcast with Eamon Brennan and Tate Frazier. They've got their kind of storyline breakdown of the NCAA tournament. Weekend Under Review's got episodes, Scout Team with Kevin Sweeney and Eric Fawcett. All kinds of great content as we get into this March Madness week. And Will, that's what it is. It's a glorious week of the NCAA tournament. It's here. We're recording on Tuesday morning, so we do not know we'll Willstradamus the play-in games tonight just to make sure people are ready for those.
Tossing in an IT or two as well.
Yes, perfect. How are you feeling? I know this is an incredibly busy day or two of content. So are you ready for the actual games to start?
Viewers will be able to tell I'm extremely tired, but
I said it the second we got on air here, folks. I could see it in Will's face.
Exhaustion is real, but no, I'm very excited. I think, to be honest, Monday's the most annoying day of all of this because there's no hoop on and we're just kind of talking about hypotheticals. But starting with Tuesday and onward, especially Thursday, obviously, it's actual basketball, and that's way more fun. I enjoy talking about the games as hypotheticals and going into what may or may not happen, but to be honest, it's all just kind of toying around until the actual hoop starts. And that first tip at 12:15 on Thursday is going to be so much fun. 11:15 if you live in a better time zone than I do, but maybe 10:15, maybe 9:15, maybe, God forbid, you are Hawaiian and you get to watch this. It'd be 7:15 or 8:15 there. I don't remember.
It might even be 6:15. It's a ways back there. I can't remember exactly either. When I was out there for the Maui Invitational, brag. It was crazy how early some of the East Coast games would start.
That's
I saw your reaction.
So it starts at 6:15 for them.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Breakfast ball, man. More than anything you can imagine. I do my annual trip to Las Vegas, and I love that it's 9:15 because it's roll out of bed type of stuff. And get down to the bar, have a Bloody Mary, Will, and just watch some basketball. There's nothing wrong with that.
That has to be nice. That's a little better than 12:15, and then the late game on both Thursday and Friday inevitably is going to start at about, we're going to say 10:33. So that game's going to end at about 12:40 my time, and then I'll be up at 6 to run, and we'll just do it all over again.
That's right. And the late game Friday night is my Missouri Tigers. I'm kind of furious it's the last game of the round. I'm just going to be waiting. But hey, maybe that won't ruin the weekend for me then, because I won't just be sitting there furious that they get schooled by Jay Lucas in Miami, Florida. All right, because it is tourney time, we had a little bit of an edit of the format here, and we're going to go back and forth, but we're doing it by region. So we each assigned ourselves 2 different regions, and we have 4 numbers each. So we'll have 8 total numbers. It's similar to our normal format of stat back and forth. But I'm going to start with the East, then we'll go to Will for the Midwest. So that's the bottom right region on your brackets. Then up to my West region and finishing in the bottom left with the South. That's it, Will. Before we do it, though, stat of the day. We're going to keep this one pretty simple. I want to make sure we get into the tournament and the bracket discussion.
There are 68 teams. That's the stat.
Yes. How many teams are in the NCAA tournament? How many should be in the NCAA tournament? There's a right answer.
Did you see their post about the number of games in the tournament, which has been the same for 15 years? And they're like, oh, I can't believe it's 67 this year.
Who posted that?
March Madness, the account.
Oh, my God. That's not great. Okay, the theme of this stat of the day is, when's the last time? So for any Clips fans out there, when the last time? Okay, that might go over most people's heads, but that's all right. When's the last time the WCC got 3 bids?
2022.
This year. 2022 is correct.
It was Gonzaga, St. Mary's, San Francisco.
Yes, San Francisco with Todd Golden getting into the NCAA tournament there. All right, they're supposed to get progressively harder. We'll see if I succeeded in that endeavor or not. Or maybe you've researched all this and you know exactly the answers. When's the last time the Mountain West got one bid?
I'm gonna say 2016 because that's the year Fresno State would have won the tournament.
It was 2017, so very close. Very, very
Okay.
well done there. 2017 was Nevada and Eric Musselman team getting,
Okay.
I think it
12
was an
seed
11 seed, 12 seed, yes.
because they lost
Three
in the round of 64 to somebody.
Iowa State. Yes, well done.
Nice.
Wow.
It was
you're all
either
over
I
this.
was thinking Ohio State, but I knew that was the next year. So okay, Iowa State.
And then Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno all went to the NIT that year. All right, we
Hmm.
got two more. When's the last time the MAC got two bids? Maybe this is something you saw on TV, but
I believe
hopefully.
this would be 1999 or 2002.
1999. Look at him
Okay.
go, folks. I
Nice.
would not have gotten that. So very impressive. Miami of Ohio and Kent State, two teams that are still in the league. I will say in 2019, Buffalo got a 6 seed. It could have been a two-bid MAC, but they won the MAC tournament. So
Yeah.
we did not have to deal with that nightmare, I guess. And when's the last time the ACC got 8 bids?
This one's going to be tough. Obviously, not any of the last few years. I am going to wager because I'm trying to think it. So they would have had 15 teams in the early 2010s, right?
Yep, they've had them for a while. And I
I'm
think
gonna
there
I'm
was
gonna
a year
guess
when they had
2013. 2013.
okay, 2018 they got 9
Okay.
actually. So this used to be your powerful conference, arguably the best in the country. I think there was a time back in I don't remember what year, but they had 9 teams and still got 8 in. It was so good one year.
There's probably people like ACC super fans who are going to be yelling, and it's going to be the same sensation I had listening to the Simmons pod with cousin Sal, where they broke down the win totals for the NFL, and the entire time they thought the Lions had the third place schedule, and I was
Oh,
just like bang. I was on the run, I was like banging, and I was like third place schedule. It's
well,
like
you're just
it's actually the fourth. It's the
you're
fourth place
thinking about
schedule.
you're thinking about that as you put one foot in front of the other instead of just thinking about your run. You're so focused on the anger.
I was so mad. And I was like, "There's going to be an ACC fan." It was like 2018, and I was like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't know."
Yeah, and suddenly Will's done with like 18 miles and he doesn't even have to think about it because that's what Bill and Sal do. They get him going. All right, that was the stat of the day. Just looking back at some of those conferences, I don't think any of the other ones are remarkable in a sense or outside the norms particularly. Now I want to give a shout out to Home Field Apparel, our loyal sponsor here at Basket Under Review and on Stats by Will and Jim. It is the best place to get your college sports apparel. We've got March Madness arriving right now, so be sure to check out their Hoop Society drop. The Campus Court collection is amazing. You've got a bunch of shooting shirts and mesh shorts, also some logo hoodies for some of the sport's most iconic programs, your Blue Bloods, a couple others. I think my Mizzou Tigers even slipped in there, which I'm excited about. The shooting shirt is stylish. I need to go ahead and purchase one. And when I do, and when you do, folks, you should use promo code BURNER15 for 15% off. If you don't want to hit the court collection, just go ahead and check out all their t-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, sweatshirts, jackets, hats, joggers, anything you want. They continue to expand the brand. That's homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team and promo code BURNER15. Homefield Apparel. All right, let's get into our bracket breakdown here, Will. As mentioned, we're going to start in the East region with my numbers for that region. Then we'll go to yours in the Midwest, back to mine in the West, and finish up in the South. All right, the number in the East I'm going to start with is 22. And that is the number of Final Fours reached by coaches in this region. Got one from John Shire, one from Mick Cronin, 2 from Dan Hurley, 3 from Bill Self. I was actually kind of surprised Bill Self's only at 3, given his longevity and the amount of really good teams he's had. Rick Pitino at 7 and Tom Izzo at 8. It all adds up to 22. It's pretty tough to gain an edge via coaching in this region. There's just a lot of really good coaches. I know some people might not quite place Shire on that level quite yet. He's only early in his tenure, but I think he has gotten quite a boost for his performance this year. Like really, really good coaching job, I think. Mick Cronin is a Final Four coach, yes. And then I saw Jeff Goodman on a Selection Sunday night tweet. I made fun of it. He tweeted this list of coaches and added Pat Kelsey. I was like, wait, the guy who's never won an NCAA tournament game? Why is he getting to be on this list with every guy who's been in a Final Four? I think it's remarkable how strong and stacked this region is with coaches. Will.
It's like how Kim and Kanye have combined for 21 Grammys.
Exactly.
Uh, it is kind of nuts that the highest seed here without a coach who's been to a Final Four is Louisville, a program with multiple national titles. I mean, like that kind of goes to show you how strong and TV ready this region is. Like if you go past Louisville, it's Ohio State, who's made multiple Final Fours and has a title at some point in their history. I think further back, but they've made multiple Final Fours. I mean, TCU, I understand, has not made a deep run, but you've got Jamie Dixon, who's a deeply experienced coach in March. You've got Johnny Dawkins at UCF, my perennial underrated fave. South Florida with Hodgson. Great storyline there, by the way, with Hodgson's father. I don't know if you've seen all that, where Hodgson's father has dementia, has never seen his son coach a game in person. This is being played in Buffalo, I believe, right?
Yes, that's right.
So it'll be the first time he's ever seen his son coach him. But that's a really cool storyline. If you believe in fate and all that, maybe you should pick South Florida. I don't know. But really fun region with a lot of great coaches and a lot of great storylines in general. 22 Final Fours. I would be surprised, without adding up the rest of the field, if the entire three regions combined have 22 Final Fours together.
I started to like not fully do that, but then you just go through like Sampson's I think has 3 at 2 different schools. Todd Golden's got 1. Hubert Davis has 1. Remarkably, that is a true fact. Then you go over Dusty May's got 1. Nate Oates has got 1. They're just like almost everybody with multiple Final Fours is in this region. It is very, very loaded in that regard. If Coach K was still at Duke, it'd be even more remarkable based on him having a bunch more than Shire. But yeah, there's a lot of blue blood, big time programs, storied squads at the top of the sport, just from UConn, UCLA, Michigan State, Kansas, St. John's, Duke. As you mentioned, Ohio State, and some sneaky strong mid majors. North Dakota State can shoot. South Florida can get up and down the floor with a lot of talent. There's some really good shot volume teams like Cal Baptist in South Florida are really good. We talk about that a lot on the show. So, all right, that's the overarching first number. My second number is 4th versus 11th. It's a small gap here, but I think it's notable because that is UConn's ranking in the non-conference versus their ranking in league play per Bart Torvik. And of course, we know the NCAA tournament is a non-conference event. That's where UConn was better this year. They pulled off a bunch of really big-time wins. It's what had them close to getting a 1 seed, despite not winning the Big East regular season or tournament. They've been awesome outside of league play for years. Dan Hurley's got the best against the spread record in non-conference play over the last 5 years. I think there might be something to that, Will, where UConn is better against non-Big East foes because those teams are a little more well-schooled in how they run their offense, how to disrupt them. Perhaps there's a lot more physicality in those games. Maybe the refs are sick of Danny Hurley in the Big East, and he gets outside of that, and there's a little bit more of flexibility there. But in general, which version do you buy of UConn? Is it the one out in the non-conference that was a top 5 team, or the one that's not even top 10 if you're filtering for just league play?
I kind of buy that they're somewhere in the middle. I definitely think they're the least of the 2 seeds. With the non-con performance, I would add a small qualifier. Their opponent shot 27% from 3 in non-con play. That's going to be really hard to replicate. Though, I mean, in general, they do a very good job of making you finish one-on-one, and they don't allow many threes to begin with. But I worry about them in the sense of, like, yeah, they had some really nice wins in non-con play. Can't forget the Florida win, which has aged incredibly well, or the Illinois neutral site, or winning straight up at Kansas.
Yep.
But I do worry about them in the sense that, like, against top 100 foes this year, they weren't bad by any means. They were top 10 in the nation, but had a negative turnover margin. They foul a lot, which could be really worrying in certain setups. I think that their rim protection is excellent, and that's going to save their bacon against a lot of teams. But there's some weird matchups that are plausible for them. Like, I could see UCLA giving them some real trouble in the second round. I don't buy it with UCF, to be honest. I could see if they make it to the Sweet 16, like Obviously, Michigan State presents some real problems. And as strange as it sounds, and I know a lot of people would think this is baffling, Louisville could be a real matchup curveball for them just because of how they space the floor, like how good Mikael Brown is at getting to the rim. I know their front court is kind of hot garbage at times, and that presents a real challenge, especially against Michigan State in a perspective matchup there. But I, if I were, I'm trying to think of what the fair line would be. So I'm looking at Torvik right now, who's got it about 60-40 no that UConn doesn't make the Elite Eight. I'd take the no side.
Okay, so 60% no, they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's to your point. You said the least of the twos. I tend to agree. Just the performance in league play, the real end to the season, like getting blown out in the Big East tournament final, losing at Marquette on the season's final day, with a chance to clinch the regular season. A couple like big time spots there where you expect Dan Hurley and staff to rise up. They weren't able to do it, and that is concerning. I'm curious about the Louisville one too. If they were to see them, the spacing is unconventional. Louisville doesn't typically succeed in those Q1A games when they're playing up against the highest level. But I don't know what the health status will be of Mikael Brown Jr. Matt Cox, my cohort, said he watched the Pat Kelsey presser and it was like this long answer of not actually answering. Like, oh, he's trying to get back out there. He's looking better. Like, how many platitudes can you give without actually saying he's going to play for sure and be back at full strength? So that is somewhat of a concern. But yeah, UConn, I didn't dive too deep into Duke here because I think everybody knows what Duke is, even after winning the ACC tournament. But I'm curious about where UConn ends up. All right, I'll go to my third number for this region, and it is number 8. We kind of hinted at this team succeeding a lot recently, but since February 18th, the day after they got blitzed by Michigan State, this is UCLA's ranking nationally per Torvik. It's an 8-game sample. This has been when Donovan Dent has gone absolutely nuts over that span, 78 assists and 6 turnovers, and he'd have a lot more assists if he hadn't had to leave the Purdue game early with an injury. Their 3-point percentages, both offense and defense, are generally in line with their season-long numbers over that span. So it's not some like shooting aberration. They're a really good shooting team, so they're making around 39% in that span. I would also mention the injuries to Donovan Dent and Tyler Bilodeau seem like they're going to be okay. Cronin said yesterday on Monday that Dent looks totally fine and Bilodeau needs a day or two. And okay, he's going to get that. He doesn't have to play on Tuesday, fortunately. They do have to go cross country and play in Philadelphia. It's going to be, especially in the second round against UConn, a very heavy pro UConn crowd. But for Bilodeau's sake, at least they're playing on Friday and not Thursday. That extra day matters. And it's just a talented team with 2 really good wings, Clark and Perry, that I think has pretty high upside. And these numbers kind of show that well.
I do kind of wonder if Mick could be fueled by pure spite for being sent out east.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I had this convo with our guy Morrison crying yesterday on Twitter, and we were we're trying to figure out, like, because there's usually a 2 seed that will lose in the round of 32. And this year the odds, I think, are something in the realm of 70% that at least one will drop, which is quite nice. We need that after last year. Yep. Whether it's UConn or not, we'll see. But I think UCLA's got quite a good shot. The number 8 thing is really nice. The thing where I really do not think they've been as bad away from home as people believe. Like, yeah, 6-10 is not great, but in neutral set games, they've been quite solid. They had a really nice performance in the Big Ten tournament this weekend.
Yep.
You filter. I don't love filtering just for neutral set games because it's such a small sample. But when you do, they do pop up as a top 25 team. And I believe in these guys a bit more than perhaps I should, perhaps more than is medically advisable. But if you have them in like a straight up game against UConn, they've got, per Torvik, about a 37% chance to win. They're more than live in a round of 32 battle with UConn. I think they'd have a real shot. We've covered many times we're not huge believers in this edition of UConn. So I think the Bruins could be this year's, and it is funny, it's going to end up being the 5-year anniversary of the COVID tournament. Could Mick do it again?
Yes, out of the, I guess not quite from the play-in game as he did in that
Yeah.
tournament with Juzang and co. But yeah, they might have the best player on the floor in a lot of these games because Dent is playing at such an elite level right now. Got some shooting. Eric Daly's sort of the forgotten man. He had a nice tournament run. We scored in double digits in every game at the Big Ten tournament. It's like I said, it sounds like Bilodeau is going to be good to go. There's enough there. There's enough there for UCLA, I think, to potentially make a run. And perhaps UConn stomps this out immediately. And Husky fans listening to this are probably just hating the two things we just did, those 2 points I made. But I still think UCLA has a chance to make a run. I would also mention that over that same time horizon, since February 18th, Ohio State is 12th. They are
Mm.
playing really, really well too. Awesome backcourt. I, I I think a lot of people talked about Duke's path being difficult because of the coaches in the region. I think they got arguably the toughest 8-9 game too. I think TCU's shown they can play up. I mean, they beat Florida. They were with Michigan for the entire game. That's 2 1 seeds already. And then Ohio State's just played with Michigan really well and is kind of on fire lately and has a senior point guard that can make big time plays. So I don't envy Duke's draw, although it does sound like they're going to get Big Pat back for the NCAA tournament.
I don't think that Duke got a particularly great or horrible draw. I think it was kind of about right for them. Uh, I did see a lot of people who are like, "Oh my god, they got to play Ohio State in the second round," and it's like that's fine. I understand, but Ohio State like didn't have a quad 1A win until 3 weeks ago,
Yeah, yeah. This
and
team's not
like,
been.
and I know
Yeah,
people are afraid of the TCU thing, and TCU's dramatically played up or down to the level of whoever they were happening to play at the time. But I mean, they got to get past Ohio State first. And this Ohio
yep,
State team, as you mentioned, playing exceptionally well right now.
yep. All right, my last number for the East region is 138th, and this I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's something we've mentioned on the show before. This is Kansas' rank per CBB Analytics in rebound and turnover differential in the country. Teams right around them, such luminaries as LSU, Virginia Tech, Georgetown, Oklahoma State, Monmouth. That's like their company in terms of their rebound and turnover differential. So kind of like a backdoor shot volume type of thing. This concerns me because their draw could be 2 top 20 teams. Cal Baptist is an elite rebounding mid-major. They've got 3 6'10" or taller guys in the front court that they rotate through. They're fantastic in the rebound margin department. I think they can bug Kansas there. And then a potential game against St. John's in the second round is not fun either. Like a bruising front court that can play big while also remaining somewhat versatile. And then if you do get to the Sweet 16, Duke is number 2 in this category. So I have a hard time buying any sort of deep run for Kansas, Will, and it's because of this. Like they're going to play teams that are going to own the shot volume battle against them. How many times can they overcome that? I don't think it's 3. It might not even be 2.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to shoot the lights out basically 3 straight games. So with Cal Baptist, I don't feel quite as concerned as I perhaps should. They're going to win the rebounding battle for sure. But I mean, it is the 284th best half court offense for Cal Baptist. So I would like for them to win, but I don't really see it. The St. John's piece is for sure one item. The other item is that if they play Northern Iowa, I don't think that's a particularly good matchup either, because Northern Iowa slows the game dramatically down to a crawl. And besides the whole history aspect of this already happening once in 2010, the thing that my number, if I had had this region, would have been 48th, which in games where Tristan Smith has played for Northern Iowa, that's their ranking at Bart Torvik. Northern Iowa is a legit top 50 team when fully healthy, and they're a dramatically like it is the worst 12 seed you could have drawn if you're a 4 or a 5. So I do think that like if Kansas can make it to the round of 32 and just get Northern Iowa instead of St. John's, they've obviously got better odds. But they're going to be overpicked this year, I think. Though I did notice that more people have St. John's in the Sweet 16 than Kansas, which is interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the St. John's team, the way they're playing. But
Mhm.
if you pick them far, you're going to have to sweat the first game. Like they're not going to waltz over Iowa State. I would be surprised if they do. So
Mhm.
that's like All right, I want to have this team to the Elite Eight. Well, it's not safe any single game. So, all right, the other little tiny number is not actually that relevant. This is my nod to Duke fans being the number one here. The number's 3. That's the number of Duke's 5 NCAA titles. 3 have been won in Indy, and that is where the Final Four is this year. So, Blue Devils, I'm sure you're excited about that. They also did play a game in Washington, D.C. already against Michigan, got a big win there. So they've got a little bit of familiarity with that arena. Of course, UConn and St. John's both played at Georgetown in league play, so also have played in that arena. But that's it. Well, that's what I got for the East. So we can head to you and the Midwest to kick it off.
All right. Midwest, I want to try and go top to bottom here. So I try and do like one per pod, or, pod regions, whatever it is. The big one for me, surprisingly, is 14%. This is the number of people picking Michigan to win it all at both ESPN and Yahoo, despite Michigan having 19% odds at KenPom, 18% at Torvik, and surprisingly, I did double check this to make sure it was right, 26% at Evans' site. Yeah, which is astonishing. So I know that Michigan did just lose their last game, so they're automatically the worst 1 seed in the field, replacing Florida, who is the worst 1 seed in the field for 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and replacing Houston, who is the worst 1 seed in the field for 4 hours. But I understand all that. I know LJ Kason's out. They're still outstanding. Like, even sans Kason, they've played quite well. People are freaking out a bit over them having to skate past Ohio State and Wisconsin. I would simply point to your stat that Ohio State has played exceptionally well lately. And I would also point to the fact that Wisconsin already beat Michigan this year and, had a player hit 5 threes in a row. So, like, how easy to replicate is that? And, your mileage is going to vary. I've picked Michigan to win it all. I'm just going to spoil it because they are the best bracket value pick. I look at their top half of the bracket. It's really hard for me to envision the bad matchup for them. A lot of people are going to point to Alabama, and I'm going to get to them next. But if Texas Tech was at full strength, I'd be more of a believer. But neither 8 or 9 particularly interests me. Georgia feels like a crock potting, which is my way of saying like a slow blowout.
Oh, yeah.
St. Louis feels like either a close game or a 40-point demolition. So I have a hard time seeing Michigan be truly threatened for 40 minutes prior to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I think I'd be all over Texas Tech if they had JT Toppin, but they probably wouldn't be seeded here. They'd be a 3 seed somewhere. So it's hard for me to get invested there. You've got shorthanded 4 or 5 seeds. Michigan's floor is still really, really high. Like, yes, they lost a home game to Wisconsin, a team that's only a 5 seed, but I can't see them getting upset. The high level like ceiling access without Kaysen maybe does hurt, and down the stretch, Iowa really almost beat them. Ohio State almost beat them. Wisconsin almost beat them. I think that's something that's easy to cite. They weren't blowing teams out by 30 the way they were back in November and December and even early January, but they're still a super high floor team because they're awesome at the rim on both ends of the court, top 5 in 2-point percentage on both ends. Pretty darn good rebounding team. They can play big. They can play a little bit through their big guys, the passing of Mara, the passing of Lendeborg. It doesn't have to all be on Cadeau. Maybe not like the most elite shot volume for a number 1 seed because they're not great in the turnover department, but I still think their rim dominance and the fact that they don't need to shoot that great from 3 to move forward is a good sign for them. I am surprised they're being a little bit underpicked, like you mentioned, and it's probably because the standout memory of the last game that ended before the selection show was them losing by, not convincingly, but Purdue controlled that entire second half.
Yeah, and I do genuinely think that Purdue's just a bad matchup for them, which is interesting because they can play them in the Final Four if they get there. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like you sort that problem out once it happens, I imagine.
Yep. Yeah, they did kind of, I wouldn't say drilled Purdue at Purdue, but handled that game, but Purdue couldn't make a shot. So it wasn't like a complete, aberrational dominance, but it does, they're so sustainable because of their size that they can do that to teams.
All right. My next stat here is 13 for 41. This is not my shooting performance. This is the 41 3 through 5 seeds historically that have been out rebounded on the average night. 13 of them have made the Sweet 16. This applies to the Alabama Crimson Tide, who have been out rebounded on average this season and have had a hell of a time protecting the defensive boards. Only Kansas, Nebraska, and Alabama this year among the 1 through 6 lines are out rebounded on the average night. They've got a lot of holes, man. I understand that people are really into the offense, and I get that. The Aiden Holloway thing, we're going to see how that affects them with his, because it seems like he's very much missing at least the round of 64, if not
Yep.
further. If he missed it, he got arrested for what we'll say is a drug issue, problem, dealing, who knows. We don't want to do libel here, but Alabama, if you're looking for a team to beat Michigan, only 4 of these 41 have made the Elite Eight. They get out rebounded. They have a defense outside the top 60. They have the worst defense on the 1 through 6 seed lines this year. 1 through 4 seeds with a defense outside of the top 60 historically have not done well. Exactly 2 out of 41 have made the Final Four.
And one of them was
Alabama.
yeah.
But they did shoot the lights out. I mean, the other one for the record is 2012-2013 Michigan. But I just don't really buy it with them. Like, even that Michigan team was quite a bit better at, forcing turnovers, or at least, not turning it over either than Alabama was. And the Alabama team of 2 years ago, way, way better on the boards than this edition of Alabama. So I just don't really buy it. It's really hard to find in history successful upper tier seeds with negative rebounding and turnover margins, which Alabama's got both, by the way. When paired with a bad defense, it's like, I'm running the numbers for our people right now. So there have been across history teams with defenses outside of the top 50 and negative rebound and turnover margins. We have a total of 3 other candidates ever. 2014 Creighton, out in the round of 32. 2010 Vandy, out in the round of 64, lost to Murray State. 2002 Arizona, lost in the Sweet 16. It's not a great hit rate.
Yeah, not a lot of deep runs. And it shows how rare that kind of a team is. And the only way Alabama's, the best way they've found to compensate for it is they don't turn it over themselves, and they can win the math game because they take 54% of their shots from 3. The problem is if you take out Aiden Holloway, who's very arguably their best shooter, I think maybe not even arguably, he is their best shooter, then that removes some of that crutch they can lean on with the shooting. Like, Filan can still get hot, Wrightsell can make shots, everybody on the team is allowed to shoot. Maybe they play a little more. Jalil Bethea, the former 5-star recruit, barely seen the games, or barely seen the court in recent stretches. But I just think if you're already bad at the defense and rebounding aspects, and now you remove the best shooter, I'm really concerned here. I think Hofstra slowing the game down is a tough matchup for them. And if you go into that second round meeting with potentially Texas Tech or even Akron, you might not have the best backcourt anymore because Holloway's not a part of the game. So I'm also very concerned about Alabama. There's not going to be a lot of early round upsets in the 1 through 4, even 1 through 5 seeds, but Hofstra's one that I'm actually talking myself into.
Same here. The Alabama thing I will note, so I ran it at Hoop Explorer really quick. Sans Holloway, so with Holloway, they're plus 32.6, adjusted for opponent, venue, all of that per 100. Without Holloway, plus 21.6 per 100. The offensive efficiency falls by 12 points per 100 when he leaves the court, almost entirely because they go from shooting 38% from 3 to 33. They get fewer offensive rebounds because of that. They turn it over more, which is interesting to me. Like, the turnover rate actually jumps by about 2%, and their rim rate falls quite dramatically, which it is kind of funny. We don't think of Holloway as this unbelievable, amazing driver to the rim, but it just goes to show that, like, Alabama does become a bit more limited. Like, they become extremely 3-point reliant. And does that mean that they could, hit 47% of their threes and demolish Hofstra? Of course it does. But if you're not hitting them and you're not getting your misses and you're allowing a lot of offensive rebounds in the other end of the court, you're going to open yourself up to a really interesting day at the office.
Yep, and their 2 most likely matchups, Texas Tech, and already, of course, they're going to play Hofstra. Both teams do an awesome job of limiting rim attempts. They're top 20
Mhm.
in average 2-point attempt distance. And Oates isn't going to take the cheese of taking mid-range twos. So they're probably going to launch a lot of threes. I think I guessed on the Weave Pod that they take like 67% of their attempts from the field from three against Hofstra. And that just sets up a really high variance outcome, especially if they're going to be taking less shots than Hofstra because of the rebounding battle. It's a kind of a thin needle to thread that you don't want to have as a 4 seed in the first round.
Yeah, so my other number here actually would have been 14th, which is Texas Tech's ranking at Torvik since the Toppin injury. And I have applied that both to the Akron game, which I don't know if you've seen this. Akron is easily the most popular 12/5, which I personally don't really understand.
Yeah, I guess they're like, well, this team won a conference tournament that has an undefeated team in it, and JT
Yeah,
Toppin's out. I see where that's coming from, I guess. But
I see where they're coming from, but if you look at the matchup itself and how Texas Tech's actually played, it's hard for me to really get to it. But point being, Texas Tech is not going to be this bad 5 seed that Alabama gets to draw. They're still quite strong. I mean, 14th is better than Alabama's full season ranking of 17th at Ken Pom. So
yep.
I, yeah, I'm fading the Crimson Tide for sure.
Yeah, I'm assuming Christian Anderson will be healthy. It sounds like he is. The little growing pull on the slippery LED floor sounds like it's okay. Sounds like Lawan Watts' ankle is okay. And Texas Tech sort of reset up its identity recently, playing a lot more Bamgoy at center. They obviously had to with no Toppin. And Tyree Bryan has gotten back in the lineup. He gives them more upside as a 3-point shooter off the bench too. So
Hmm.
I don't think either team can beat Michigan unless either Bama or Texas Tech make like 17 threes, something like that. It might need to be at least that number.
Yeah,
But I I think I'm buying Texas Tech out of that little pod there.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So,
Next
so
number
my
for you
next
in
number
the
here.
yes.
Apologies for interrupting.
No,
It's
no.
not surrounding Miami. It's not surrounding SMU, Virginia, or Wright State. Of course, it's going to surround Tennessee. But the big one here, 10. There are only 10 5 or 6 seeds in history to get back 40% or more of their missed shots. Tennessee is nearly at 46%, which is like historically astonishing. I mean, Tennessee is posting numbers you would have seen in like 1999, 2000 era of college hoops. Does that say something bad about Tennessee's shooting? Possibly. I would be open to that interpretation. But the Vols do get back a lot of their missed shots. And these 10 teams went 8-2 in the round of 64. And the only two teams who lost, 2006 Oklahoma to, I think, a directional Michigan, but I'm not recalling for sure. In 2016 Baylor, who lost the Yale game. If you recall, Turian Prince doing the post-game interview about what a rebound was. Hopefully Tennessee does not have to do the same thing, but their average win expectancy in this round of 78% when you split the Miami and the SMU games is nearly 10% more than any of those who went before them in this category. The highest previous was 69%, which was 2005 Villanova, made the Sweet 16. Um, both Baylor and Oklahoma were more towards 60% or lower. Tennessee profiles as an unusually safe type of 5 or 6 seed, sort of bully ball team down low. The Nate Ament piece is obviously the thing people will look for, as well as Jacoby Gillespie. But perhaps the most overlooked part of the Tennessee experience is that these guys simply just get back a ton of missed shots, even in losses. So they, I mean, they've really only been blown out once all year by Florida, who is what I would call plus Tennessee or luxury Tennessee. So I feel that Tennessee is quite safe in the opening round and feels like a decent bet to come out of this pod, especially when the majority of people have UVA coming out of it.
Yeah, I think they're a decent dark horse pick with it to get Sweet 16. I do not worry too much about their either 11 seed. I'm not sure what's going to happen if Miami's going to actually stand up for the mid majors and get the win over SMU, potentially shorthanded with no BJ Edwards. That matters a little bit. Former Vol BJ Edwards there. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Warren is aware.
Chased off per my memory for Chaz Lanier, so probably a decent trade off.
Yeah, it worked out all right there for you.
But like obviously
That
this year, I'd rather have him than quote unquote Bishop Boswell.
yes, I was that 2006 Oklahoma team you mentioned, coached by Kelvin Sampson, knocked off in the first round by Milwaukee. I was going to say it was Bruce Pearl,
Okay.
but by that point it was Rob Jeter. Actually, it was not not Bruce Pearl anymore, but Joe Tucker, a legend of the Bruce Pearl run at Milwaukee, Sweet 16 the prior year. Yeah, I'm buying Tennessee quite a bit for the Athletic. I did a power rankings of the top 16 teams, and I included Tennessee at 16th over Alabama. Debatably whether I should have included them over Vandy. I was trying to factor in draw a little bit there too. I got some flack for it in the comments, but there's 2 stars on this team. The offensive rebounding kind of sets up a pretty high floor for them. I'm buying it a little bit too here, Will. I think Tennessee versus Virginia is going to be a dogfight, like really, really close game, and I would not behoove anybody or besmirch anybody for picking either side there.
You would behoove the Who's. Sounds like
The Wahoos, yes.
All right, for my fourth one, I'm going to leave it to you. Would you rather hear about Santa Clara or Iowa State?
Santa Clara.
Okay. Santa Clara.
Sorry, Cyclones.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, like, people already know they're really good. Against top 100 competition, my number is 24th. That's Santa Clara's ranking against teams in the top 100 this year. Really strong for the 10 line. I am aghast, shocked, floored, bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray by the fact they are 4.5-point underdogs to Kentucky. I'm wondering if people have watched Kentucky play this year.
Yeah, maybe they're just gonna live bet that game because Kentucky's gonna get down 15, or
yeah,
it's erratic.
Santa Clara better only build a 9-point lead.
Yes, don't get up too much.
Do not get up big. What this actually feels like to me, and I don't think this would pop up in a common comparison tool, but it's just what it feels like is, do you remember when Wichita played Indiana in the round of 64 in one of the Tom Crean years?
Ooh, man, not immediately.
I think it was 15. So it would, because they played Kansas the next game. So yeah, 2015.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that was the 7-10 game, and then there's the 7-2 with Kansas. Got it. Okay.
And a ton of people picked Indiana because of the name, but Wichita was like clearly the better team, and I think won that game by 4 or 6. It was very close the whole way, but they eventually, pulled away at the end and escaped, and then went on to beat Kansas in the round of 32. I don't know that I can get there with Santa Clara actually beating Iowa State, but if you filter just for games against top 100 competition, which I believe is fair for this round, Santa Clara 24th, UK 43rd. They're going to have a shot volume edge. They're playing a team that's ranked 355th in Haslametrics away from home metric. To me, easily the best value play in any of the 8-9 or 7-10 games.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Santa Clara here as well. It's partial Kentucky skepticism, and I know they got Cam Williams back, which helps the offense a little bit. But I also saw somebody say, like, oh, Santa Clara can't play up against Kentucky. Look what happened to them against Gonzaga. Yeah, they lost 3 times to Gonzaga, but they were tied at halftime in Spokane. They're winning after 30 minutes at home, and they're winning or like tied after 30 minutes in the WCC title game. Like, they played with Gonzaga all 3 times.
That's also kind of a dumb complaint because they went 2-1 against St. Mary's.
Yeah, and I don't mind if you're playing with a team that's a 3 seed and getting close to beating them all 3 times. They never got ran off the floor. I know they lost by 12 in one of the games and 11 in another. Those are not reflective of how those games went. Gonzaga just kind of extended late, made some free throws. Santa Clara is really good. They've got size. You can make the serious argument they have the best NBA prospect on the court with the scouting love of Alan Graves, and no acquaintance for Kentucky to be their top pro prospect. So yeah, I'm also buying Santa Clara. The game is in St. Louis. It's going to be a heavy pro Kentucky crowd because of how Big Blue Nation travels. But I think everybody else, Iowa State fans, Mizzou fans, are all going to jump on board the Santa Clara train in that arena. And that gives them maybe a nice little bump in terms of just potentially winning that outright.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the West region. That is the Midwest there from Will. We'll start with, I think this is the number I was most excited about as I went through that I uncovered here. Number is 2, and that is the number of top 30 defenses in this entire region. A 16-team region that should theoretically have a quarter of the distribution of top 30 defenses. There's only 2. It's Arizona and it's Gonzaga. There are 5 top 45 defenses, or 5 more. You add in Villanova 35th, Purdue 36th, Miami, Florida 38th, Hawaii 43rd, and Utah State 45th. But notably, your 4 seed, your 5 seed, your 2 seed, there's not a lot of great defenses here atop the bracket. Arkansas is really backcourt and offense heavy. Wisconsin, the same way. Does that set up poorly for Arizona? It might, because we know that Michigan's already lost to Wisconsin. They can play up well. Purdue has beaten Michigan very recently, and they're not the same team as Arizona, but dominance with size, dominance around the rim. There are some similarities there. I just found it remarkable that we didn't end up with any defenses here. And one of the other elite defenses is Gonzaga, two teams that are built very similarly. So I guess if I was John Rothstein and naming the region here, Will, this would be the region of offense.
This is for sure the most watchable region, I would say. This year, I think the Midwest is pretty close, but this seems like the most watchable. Yeah, and to go with this, you have to think of like BYU's defense is completely cratered post the Richie Saunders entry, and really before that. The Arkansas, and I'm not meaning this as disrespect. I'm just meaning this as it is the TikTok team of 2026, where people are just going to watch the highlights and think like, oh my God, this team is the national champion. And then it's like, well, you got to watch Darius Acuff play defense first before you get there, because it's not very fun for anybody involved. But
yes.
It is going to be interesting to see if defense wins out and we get the Arizona Gonzaga final, which feels most probable to me, I would guess, depending on the status of Braden Huff. Or if we do get like a more offense friendly final, and it's probably still Arizona, but like you could see Arizona Purdue, or God forbid Arkansas Purdue, which would be pretty wild. Yeah, this is a fascinating region to me. I know where I'm leaning, but I think the lack of defense played in it is going to create some pretty wild outcomes.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I guess at the very end we'll do actual Final Four picks and title picks. We gotta get the people what they want there. All right, it ties a little bit into my second number, just kind of like Arizona's path. The two numbers are 6,114 and 5,905. Those are the number of miles that would be needed to travel for either Wisconsin or Arkansas, respectively, to play in the Sweet 16, since both Arkansas and Wisconsin have to go to Portland for the first round. You have to go to Portland and back, and then they'd have to one way to San Jose. And that's a lot of travel in a week before they play Arizona, who's going to be in San Diego and then San Jose. A little bit more of a cushy proposition for them. Especially for Arkansas, this stinks, given that they played on Sunday and won the SEC tournament title, and then they've got a Thursday game in Portland. It's not a great travel setup for them. As mentioned, then they'd have to turn around and go right back west, or maybe they stay west. I think sometimes programs opt to do that, where they just won't go all the way back to Arkansas and then all the way back to the West Coast. I'm curious what the plan is there, but I think that is a sneaky strong part of the draw for Arizona, that they're not going to have to deal with that. I know they charter in the NCAA tournament, and it's somewhat cushy travel, but it's still a long way to go, and it's a long time that you're not as focused on basketball. You're not in the gym working on scouting, etc. I just thought that was notable, that for a team getting shipped out west, both Arkansas and Wisconsin got stuck with a early round west site, and that makes it really tough on them too.
Yeah, well, one big problem for Mick Cronin. He would really hate this travel plan. Though it would be
Yes,
going
well,
out west.
he's got to go to Buffalo and then DC, so I know he's not going to love what he's got set up there.
But no, I think it's going to be a really interesting thing. And we mentioned this, or I did it in the Selection Sunday TV guide. Matt Norlander's been all over this. The travel aspect of this year's NCAA tournament is going to be fascinating. I never anticipated when we signed up working for Basket and Review that we'd be talking about a TSA shutdown and or the government's ability or inability to stay open, however they feel. But it could very well affect who gets where at what time. Norlander specifically mentioned, the NCAA sending out a memo stating that, like, if you expect to arrive at your site normally in a normal year at like 12 p.m. on Tuesday, you might not get there until 7 or 8 p.m. that Tuesday, and you're just going to have to deal with it, or a Wednesday. It reminds me a lot of when Colorado State, I think, played the first game of the NCAA tournament in 2022 and didn't get a travel itinerary until like Tuesday afternoon. I know they didn't get to their site until Wednesday. So I'm wondering if that's going to affect somebody, especially I do feel bad for these first four teams who are going to have to get shipped out somewhere. But it's just, the name of the game.
Yep. Was that the Colorado State team that played Michigan
Yes.
6-11 first game? Okay. Michigan was very popular, 11-6. I fought back against it and made the silly decision to pick a Mountain West team in the NCAA tournament there, and it did not work out well. Hunter Dickinson and the Wolverines took that down. So yeah, the travel stuff is something to watch, just because I think they're short on charters, and I think Norlander said that's one of the small holdups on expanding the tournament is that they'd have to figure out a bunch more logistics with more teams quickly turning around, because you'd have so many games on Tuesday and Wednesday now. Just something to watch there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my third number here. This one isn't as overarching of a storyline about how the region is going to play out. It's just something I'm excited about. The number is 2. That is the number of assists Braden Smith needs against Queens to set the all-time record and break Bobby Hurley's mark atop Division I. Notably, Queens gave up 100 or over an average of over 100 in their 5 games against Power 5 competition, 3 of which were tourney teams. Now they play the number 1 offense in the country in Purdue. I think Braden Smith is going to get more than 2 assists here, Will. I think Purdue's going to rack up points against that Queens sieve Swiss cheese defense. I wonder what they're going to do, if they'll stop the game, like give him the ball, or like how they'll react to this in the fact that it's a postseason NCAA tournament game, but it's an all-time record. So I'm curious what you think.
I think they should rush the court. I think it should be like when Ovechkin set the goal record and the whole team. It was like a regular season game, and the whole team came out and they stopped the game for like 15 minutes. They should tape the basketball and write like what would the assist number be? It's like 1,000 something, right?
It's 1,077. I think will be the record.
So they'll write tape and it'll be like 1,077 Braden Smith on it. So do you know Queen's half court defensive ranking at Synergy? And this is despite playing really bad schedule.
It has to be like 355th or something, right?
345th, which is, I'm going to say, a problem when you're about to play Purdue.
Yes.
I just realized Rothstein is the sideline reporter for this game, which makes it even better for the record.
Oh yeah, in St. Louis, it's gonna be beautiful.
I will wager Purdue scores 100 here. I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, and they might not even go over 70 possessions. It could be a slow game.
Yeah,
they just might score 1.4 points per possession. Like
I will know,
guessing
Queens can and will score in Purdue, because Purdue's pick and roll defense is not good, and Queens pick and roll offense is actually quite efficient and very solid. So I think that if Queens gets to like 76 here, that won't shock me. But they're going to give up 100.
Yep, they can shoot. They got Schwieger in the front court, can really stretch the floor. I'm curious who, if we do get the record-breaking assist, and I strongly anticipate we will, who it's going to be to. It feels right that it should be to TKR or Lawyer, like the 2 guys he's played with all 4 years. If it's to Oscar Clough, I'll feel a little less excited, just like 1% less excited about it if it's not one of his cohorts that's been there for 4 years.
I think it's going to happen by the first media timeout. Like, it'll be fast.
It might be the second basket of the game in the first minute. Like, it's very possible that it happens super quickly there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and my 4th number here, I didn't shoehorn in a Mizzou number. I thought about it, but there was a UCLA or a Miami reporter that said something about, like, it's not fair that Mizzou gets to play 12 minutes from campus. It's like, it's 2 hours from campus. This isn't like a next door neighbor type scenario. St. Louis and Columbia are not next door. But
so, like, are they going to travel that well? I don't feel like you guys like this team.
Yeah, there's enough St. Louis residents that are fans of Mizzou that'll be there, but they're going to be fighting for tickets with Kentucky. Purdue fans are going to travel super well and have a bunch of people in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State, that fan base travels incredibly well around the Midwest. So I don't think it's going to be a complete over infestation of.
And I didn't think about that aspect. They will root against Missouri as a former Big 12 foe.
Yeah, definitely will. Okay, and Kentucky fans will root against Missouri since Missouri won at Rupp Arena this year, etc. Okay, last number is 1.18 versus 1.13. That's the projected points per possession per Evan Mia's matchup simulator for a theoretical Arkansas versus Wisconsin second round game. I'm going to take the over on those numbers. I think both teams score even more efficiently than that. I was surprised they're even that low because it's 2 top 10 offenses, and both defenses are outside the top 40 per Evans numbers. I just pray for that game. I know Hawaii can kind of muck up a little bit of what Arkansas wants to do since they don't help off shooters at all. Arkansas's got great one-on-one scorers. High Point, somewhat of a darling pick here, despite that they haven't played a top 100 team all season. But I think back to last year in that Wisconsin BYU game we got in the second round and how fun that was, up and down, offenses scoring like crazy. I want to see that again in this matchup out in Portland. I think we get something like 95-90, where Thomas and Acuff combined for 65, Boyd and Blackwell combined for 60. That's the game. As soon as the bracket came out, I was like, please give me that matchup. Apologies to High Point in Hawaii. I want to see those two go at it up and down.
The High Point thing is really interesting to me because we have essentially zero data outside of the Purdue game last year and how they would play. And they weren't awful in that game, but I didn't feel that they acquitted themselves beautifully either. So I'm not. I do feel though that they could pull it off. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with that one, but I agree. If we can get Wisconsin, Arkansas, it's going to be an offensive explosion because Arkansas is bad defensively and Wisconsin is also bad defensively. But the interesting aspect there, because so many people are riding the Arkansas bandwagon, Wisconsin does have a strange and innate ability to play up or down to their competition, regardless of who it is, regardless of where it is. I mean, this is a team that's won at Illinois, at Michigan, and at Purdue, probably three of the very best wins you can have, and also lost to Indiana, USC, Oregon, and nearly lost to Washington in the Big Ten tournament. I
I
don't
think they're
really
like
know what we're
getting
going to get with
smacked at
them.
home by Minnesota too. Like they've got some strange results on there, man.
Yeah, and like I just don't really know what to expect with them, and that's why I kind of wonder if High Point is live in that first game. Just because I mean, High Point does play a very aggressive style of defense. Wisconsin's not much for turnovers, but they don't force them either. They don't really rebound well. So I'm curious about that. I don't know that I can really get all the way there. It does fit my stupid note that I've said every year now that an upset has happened in the first two TV windows of the tournament for 13 years running. So that one does fit, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting there.
Yeah, the Minnesota game, they're down 35-17 at home against Minnesota. It wasn't at the barn. This was at home, the Kohl Center. A couple of my buddies that went to Wisconsin, since I'm from Milwaukee area, like, can we please get through the first round game and start playing good teams? Because that's the game that makes them most nervous because they've played up so well. And they want to avoid that potential mid-major, and High Point is talented. They're small, which is a problem, and they play somewhat compact. And I don't think pressure is going to work against Boyd and Blackwell. So I don't love the matchup for High Point, but Wisconsin, if they're lackadaisical and maybe Nolan Winter's still a little gimpy on his ankle, isn't quite back to 100%, there's certainly a path there. But I'm hoping that we get that Arkansas versus Wisconsin matchup. I had 0 as the number of top 100 teams that High Point played. I had a whole rant about how they're literally next to Miami of Ohio and KenPom, and they played a worse schedule than Miami, and they lost 4 times as evidence that it's not that easy to do what Miami is doing. And then 0 is also the amount of Fs that I care that Mizzou's playing 120 miles from campus. So we
That's
covered
gonna
all
be
that
like
stuff.
concern number 10,000 for the committee. I can't believe people care about that at all.
Yep. And I think I want to say it's Bowertology on Twitter. He does a long thread going through taking the S curve that the committee does and then how they slotted the bracket, like following bracketing principles. And it makes total sense why Mizzou ended up there because of the sites that were available and the teams that were ahead of them on the 10 line. And yeah, it all was like logically based considering their rules.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. That's the West region. Oh,
Quick
yeah.
aside here, because I do want to get this on the record for my idiot thing of 13 straight tournaments, first two TV windows. 7 games would qualify here. Obviously not TCU, Ohio State. And I'm just going to roll out Duke, Siena. I know it'd be really funny. It's not going to happen. Troy, Nebraska, South Florida, Louisville, High Point, Wisconsin, McNeese, Vandy, NDSU, Michigan State, Hawaii, Arkansas.
There's a lot of candidates there, man. Wow. Yeah.
A lot of candidates. I'm going to do a quick upset draft here. So first, I think you do, even though I don't like it, have to take South Florida. I think that's gotten way too popular, but they are the analytically most wise candidate. I'd take High
Yep.
Point second.
Ooh.
I like this McNeese Vandy matchup just doesn't really strike me as that good for McNeese. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing it.
My second pick would be Troy.
I think I would take Troy over McNeese.
Yep.
I would actually have Hawaii last. I've got a bad feeling that's going to be a blowout and a real bummer of a blowout too.
Yeah, the matchup edge there of like, oh, we don't help off shooters who make you score 1-on-1, and Arkansas is like, well, we have Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, so we're
Yeah.
totally all right with that.
North Dakota State, I wish they had drawn like Virginia. I think they would have been live if they'd drawn Virginia. Michigan State's a tough matchup for them though.
Yep, agreed. Their whole advantage in the Summit is being the biggest team and dominating the glass. Well, what happens when you go play the bigger bully on campus and they have to play Michigan State in the paint?
Yeah.
Okay, there's the upset draft for the first window. Now we go to Will for the South region. Let's
think about all
finish
the
it out.
dumb shit you get to hear in this show. It's so nice.
People love it.
People
love
do
it. It's
love
what
it.
they come
People love
for.
stupid stuff. So my number to start us off, and again, I try and go pod by pod to try and hit on everything a little evenly as best as I can. My number here is 2/1 because in terms of games against top 100 competition, the 2 seed is the favorite here, Houston, not 1 seed Florida. Houston's got 30% odds, Florida 28% at Torvik. Florida has become what I would call the cause du jour of basketball literati, which is fine because they have been really good over the last few months. They've been playing exceptionally well, really good on the boards, exceptional front court. And they did start hitting threes for a little while there. I think they kind of got a bad draw. I'm going to be honest here. I noticed, and it was really funny for Fanta to do this, calling, I think, a Barstool person a child. I will say I generally will support that cause. I don't remember who it was, but that Iowa would not compete with Florida. That is a non-ball knower take. If you have watched Iowa, they would not win, but they will draw you into the mud for 40 straight minutes, and it will not be a pleasant game to play or watch. It reminds me a lot of when 38-1 Kentucky played Mick Cronin Cincinnati, and Kentucky won, but it was a deeply unpleasant experience for all involved. I think that game was like 64-53. That strikes me as a very similar thing.
Yep, Iowa gave Iowa State a tough game on the road. They nearly beat Michigan in the final week of the season. Like that, it's not like they can't play 1 and 2 seed level foes.
Yeah,
they've shown it.
And either potential Sweet 16 matchup of the top seeds strikes me as not great for Florida because we've already seen Vandy beat Florida and arguably could have beaten them twice. They were exceptionally good in that home game, but Florida shot the lights out. And Nebraska is kind of the same thing. 5 out would really draw Florida's front court out into some unique positions. That actually reminds me of Nebraska playing Michigan. And you could argue Nebraska easily could have won that game. So I think Florida got a really tough draw even before you get to the part of potentially playing a true road game in the Elite Eight or playing Illinois, who is also a really strong team. So I'm not taking Florida here. I'm not buying it.
Yeah, then Florida, I think people will say like, well, they're going to dominate the glass against almost anybody they play, and that's almost certainly true. Their front court is huge. They're great in that department, but that hasn't guaranteed them wins. Like you go back to them getting rolled by Vandy. I mean, they were down 25 in the second half of that game, and they out-rebounded them 38-23. They got 20 offensive rebounds. Vandy only had 23 rebounds total. They're grabbing almost 60% of their misses, and they lost the game by 25. Like that does not make them completely untouchable. They haven't been slowed down all that much this year. It's been tough for teams to do that. South Carolina is one of the few teams that tries in this conference. They beat South Carolina by 53 in a game, or excuse me, 55. So it's not always going to work. Duke slowed them down. UConn slowed them down. Mizzou slowed them down, held them under 70 possessions. That's definitely what Clemson or Iowa would try to do in the second round. Just going to throw them off a little bit. Last year, the second round, UConn slowed them down, and it took Walter Clayton big-time shot making down the stretch for Florida to escape that game. I know this is like, I think the same region they came out of last year, the bottom left on your brackets. They were the 4th one seed last year as well. I I'm struggling to see it too. Well, I think both the 2 and the 3 seed are very challenging matchups for them, and the shooting of the 4 and 5 could be tough.
Yeah, it's just not a great group for them. And with Vandy specifically, you mentioned not only plus 15 in rebound margin in the SEC tournament loss, plus 14 in the game that they probably should have lost at Memorial. And Vandy still dropped 94 in them that game. So I think that, like, my view of college sports in general is that every team, no matter how good or bad they are, has a kryptonite. Like, there is just bad matchups in college hoops. And Vandy seems to be Florida's, I think, any sort of 5-out style could be. And, that type of play, it just doesn't set up well for a deep run for the Gators.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. All right. Number 2.
Number 2 here, I've got 2. This is an interesting one. 29th and 213th. This is surrounding one specific game. These are the last 12 game rankings for Nebraska, 29th, and Troy, 213th. Not great. I think that game might suck, unfortunately. But it's more of a bet against Nebraska to me. They did start out exceptionally well. Obviously really good in those first 20 games when they went 20-0. But they really struggled down the stretch. Those final 12 games, I believe their offense was something in the realm of 108th or 109th in the country. I'm going to take a quick look. 114th. I was actually too charitable. So, and that was despite outshooting their opponents by 6% from 3. So the last 12 games gave up 56% from 2, only got back 25% of their misses, heavily out rebounded. They force a lot of threes and allow a generally quite low hit rate from 3, which is nice. And I don't anticipate that, like, Troy, for example, is going to be the team to take advantage of that. Troy takes a lot of threes, but doesn't really hit them. But, like, if you set it up in a potential round of 32 matchup with Vandy, that strikes me as really bad for them. Like, I think Vandy could potentially run away with that. Even a potential round of 32 matchup with McNeese doesn't seem very charitable to them. Like, I mean, this McNeese team, extraordinarily athletic, forces a lot of turnovers, doesn't turn it over much themselves. I mean, they can turn it into a free throw shooting contest if they want. And I loved this Nebraska team, had a great time watching them. I just don't feel that they set up very well for a deep March Madness run.
Yeah, I would agree. I want them to get that first program win. I want them to beat Troy. However, I can very much envision the scenario where Cooper and Kobe Campbell are raining in some threes over the top. You've got these 2 redheads lighting up the team from Lincoln, Nebraska. If you remove Victor Valdez's 21% from deep for Troy, they're actually a pretty solid shooting team. I don't know if Scott Cross is going to forbid him from shooting threes. He probably should. He's made 2 in his last 8 games. I'm not going to add up exactly the attempts, but it's something around 2 for 25. Just stop shooting, Victor. That's not your game. But that team can kind of play with 5 out. It doesn't phase them. They played up early in the season. Remember that back-to-back, they won double OT at San Diego State and then triple OT at USC when USC actually had a pulse. That was an impressive turnaround playing up against good competition. I think that's a dangerous game for Nebraska. And a lot of it always kind of flew in the face of their 20-0 run to start the season that they were high variance because they take so many threes and they concede so many threes. But I'm kind of buying Troy, giving them a tough game. I said on the 3-Man Weave pod, I love like 1st to 15 here. I think Troy can, jump out, get a couple of shots in early, and maybe then Nebraska settles in. But yeah, I kind of buy that one being close despite those recent rankings you cited.
Have you heard Scott Cross talk?
I remember him talking about where did they stop on the way home from their win, their conference tournament win. It wasn't
It was
in and
some
out. It
bar in
was one of the,
Pensacola.
okay. Is that
But
what it was?
his voice, I could listen to him read the phone book. But I'm picturing him just saying, "Victor, cut that shit out," something like that. Like, just telling him to stop taking threes.
Yeah,
I
he
love
needs
hearing him
to.
talk.
He's good at a lot of other things. Stop shooting 21% from 3. That's all we ask.
My third number here for the third pod, 39th. That's UNC's ranking since Caleb Wilson got hurt. Neither their offense nor their defense rank in the top 40 nationally. VCU during that same span of time is 29th. There's already a lot that I don't like about UNC. They don't force turnovers. They don't suppress shot volume defensively well at all. They have kind of an alarming number of defensive rebounds against good opponents, or I guess offensive rebounds on the other end. Against quad 1 and 2 competition, there were just 5 top 25 net teams this year to finish with a negative combined rebound and turnover margin. It was Alabama, Texas Tech, Kansas, the Badgers, and North Carolina. Against top 100 competition only, this is 37 VCU playing 34 UNC, and that latter number included a lot of Caleb Wilson games in it. I'm selling the Tar Heels pretty hard here. I'm wondering if there's a little bit, because I have not seen many people actually take, outside of like you and I or like a Anthony DeBundo type, take VCU. And I wonder if there's some buyer's remorse surrounding last year with VCU losing to BYU when they were quite good upset candidates.
Yep.
I would suggest to those people that, one, it's a different coach. And two, this UNC team is nowhere near as good as that BYU team was, especially with how good BYU was playing down the stretch of that year. It's the reverse logic this year. Like, I look at Yahoo right now, North Carolina is a more popular pick to win their round of 64 game than Louisville, which genuinely surprises me. When I see that BYU is 80%, I can actually rationalize that because a lot of normies will just see first four and not even think about it. They'll just pick like the team that exists over the hypothetical team that doesn't. But like UNC's opponent exists and is arguably better than them right now.
Yeah, I mean, just based like not to make it like betting spreads, but that's a 2-point spread, and Louisville, South Florida is 5.5. Like mathematically, VCU is more likely to win. I would add that you mentioned how North Carolina is not playing that well. They're 350th in momentum per Haslametrics. They're also 364th in away from home ranking. Like this team has not been the same outside of Chapel Hill. I know they played with Clemson in the ACC tournament, but Clemson had just lost Carter Welling to a torn ACL. It's not like they were suddenly this full strength team. I'm a big buyer of VCU. I'm going to run it back after I was on VCU last year, picked them to beat BYU. It was very similar situation, 6-11 game, like I think basically a 2-point spread. Got red hot VCU coming in here. I'm going back to the well there. I just don't think Carolina has got the right, I don't know, the right style and yeah, exactly. And I think Terrence Hill has a huge game off the bench against that drop coverage. Like he just comes in and takes a bunch of jumpers off the bounce, and that's what powers VCU to a win.
One more note on this. Away from home only ratings at Torvik, VCU 32nd, UNC 43rd. And again, several of those UNC games include Wilson.
Yeah. Wilson was rather important for this team for a long, long time.
Yeah. All right, final ranking or rating or stat, whatever you want to call it here from the South region. I've got 2 surrounding the same team, and they both apply here. 18 for 19 and 13 for 19. So John Gassaway's shot volume index, which we've referenced many times on here, if you're plus 10 or higher, you are in seriously elite company. Houston is one of 19 1 or 2 seeds since 2002 who've combined a plus 10 or greater shot volume index with a top 10 KenPom ranking. These teams, 18 for 19 in making the Sweet 16, 13 for 19 in making the Elite 8. That's pretty damn good. And so this also touches on another team. Iowa State applies here as well. They're also plus 10 and top 10. So think about that for bracket purposes. But I bring this up because Houston is most likely to play Illinois in the Sweet 16. And whereas I really do enjoy this Illinois team a lot, and they're quite fun, 1 through 4 seeds with -1 or worse turnover margins per 100 win 0.3 games less than expected in my database. Illinois is almost at -2 per 100 this year. The teams that apply this year, interestingly, Michigan, but also Florida, Michigan State, and Kansas. Just not like I definitely think Illinois is closer to the MSU Kansas tier than the Michigan Florida tier. Not great company to be in. I am riding with the Cougars once again, especially because these are functional home games for them. I will note for people who were, and Gary Parrish had a really long complaint about this on the Eye of College Basketball show. For people complaining about this, I do suggest that you think long and hard about the size of Houston's fan base and the size of Houston's alumni base, neither of which are all that large. I mean, you watch games at the Fertitta Center, and even against great opponents, it is fairly full. It only fits about 9 to 10K, I think, at home, something like that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not a
newer,
big
and they
arena.
built it smaller intentionally. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a big arena. And even last year, when the Final Four was in San Antonio, and you and I were both there, I would say even for Monday, there were more Florida fans than Houston fans. And that was despite that being a quite short drive. It's just not a giant fan base the way that like a Florida is or even an Illinois is. So
yeah.
I
For
just
Center, 7,000
7,000.
capacity.
So like kind of like a higher end mid-major stadium, which is what it was
Yeah,
originally intended for. But I don't buy that being this gigantic home court advantage for them. So it
yeah.
wasn't a big deal last year when Purdue played Houston functionally at home, and I don't think it's going to be a big deal this year when Houston gets to play Illinois and or whoever comes from the upper half of the bracket at home.
Yeah, I buy that as well. Maybe incremental advantage, but it's not like going to swing the matchup. I saw some Florida fans like we had to play a quasi road game against them in the Final Four last year. That's not really what that was. Also, this is much closer to a road game. It's actually in Houston, but Houston's advantages, to your point, are much more statistical in their turnover margin dominance, their offensive rebounding. It's not going to be they win because of the crowd. They win because of having three guys who started the national title game last year and dominance with a NBA pro prospect guard lottery pick in Flemings. Sampson, a great coach. Yeah, Houston. I was very impressed by the fact that I know they got down big against Arizona in the Big 12 title game, but then they put on a 14-0 run on the Wildcats, get back in that game, showed a little more of the high end potential. I think if they'd have gotten double digit, lost that game, and never really competed in the second half, I would have faded a little bit of my faith in them, would have lost some of it. But I like seeing that comeback attempt, and I'm buying Houston out of this region. Spoiler, I'm going to be picking the Cougars. It seems like Will might be hinting at that direction as well.
I did have a realization the other day. I guess I'll go two realizations. One is that outside of Tennessee, I've watched Houston more than any other team post COVID. And this is despite my father going to Michigan and Michigan being really good in this stretch. I have probably missed I miss like maybe 5 Houston games a year. So I don't know if I'm a fan now or like I'm at least 27% Cougar. And as a male, that is important.
Yes,
But
huge.
I believe so Houston's 14-0 run, one I know is the largest of any team against Arizona this year. And I think Evan tweeted this out. It was either the first or second kill shot Arizona had given up all season.
I think it was the second. I did the West region with him on his pod, and I think they gave one up in garbage time of a blowout victory
Okay.
at some point, maybe in a bye game earlier in the season. Yep.
So like the first real kill shot by a real opponent against Arizona. That does speak to me that Houston has that power to run with just about anybody.
Yep. I was just as impressed by that same statistic. So very, very notable. All right, Will, let's quick do Final Four and title picks. Let's give those people. Oh, and then I'm going to make you Willstradamus the Tuesday first 4 games.
All right, I'm going to go with my Final Four real quick, and then we'll close with yours. I'm going clockwise here. Duke, I've got out of the East region. I just can't identify who would beat them. And I understand, like, we have the whole Foster and Gongba injury. A lot of smarties are fading Duke right now. And good for them. I'm happy for you. You know, you can talk, you can confess to that, I would imagine, with Catholic priests. I didn't grow up Catholic. You would know better. But did you? Yeah, you did, right?
I did. Yeah. K through 8, baby. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
because I was figuring Wisconsin is just automatic. But it's like out here, it's just like it was automatic. You're a Baptist or whatever. But yeah, Duke wise, I don't buy the Kansas thing like you. St. John's is an interesting matchup, but again, I'm having a hard time. Like, I think St. John's is a complicated path there. And once they actually get there, it feels like Duke is just better. The best and most interesting matchup from the bottom half is MSU, but MSU is imperfect. I really hated how they played against UCLA. I thought that was an awful performance. And their entire vibe right now just doesn't seem great to me. That like
Yeah.
you got a nut kicker, which is not great. You never really want to have that on your team, and the turnover margin thing. I understand that they are two-way dominant on the boards, which is awesome. But at some point, the fact that you give up a ton of three-point attempts and aren't really very good at perimeter pressure defensively is going to matter. And whether that's Louisville or potentially a UConn game or potentially even UCLA again, like I don't really love that for them. So I got Duke coming out of that side. I am going Michigan on the. Sorry, wait, I'm out of spot here. I'm going to go Purdue from the West region.
Okay.
I don't love it, but a lot of people are really fading Purdue right now. I would also consider Gonzaga if you're looking for a bracket value play here. Purdue or Gonzaga would be my pick here, and it really goes to show you how tired I am. I wrote the house stats and history post, and somebody just texted me and said you picked Purdue to lose twice. So that one, I mean, harsh but fair. If they lose twice, it would be the first time ever. I think
Yeah. So to be a new Matt Painter accomplishment in the NCAA
emotionally, you
tournament.
can for sure lose twice. Um,
Yes.
so I'm picking Purdue. I would also consider Gonzaga. I reserve the right to change that. Michigan out of the Midwest. Michigan has somehow out of nowhere become the one seed with plus bracket value, which I never anticipated would happen this entire season. I thought the whole way that of all teams it would be Arizona because people wouldn't be in the Arizona bandwagon or they would start thinking about, Tommy Lloyd hasn't made a Final Four or whatever. But no, statistically, Michigan is your best value pick among the ones.
Yep.
And then I've got Houston out of the South. Title game, I am going Michigan over Duke. As I mentioned, Michigan is this year's bracket value team of the year. Somehow the pick to win it in just 14% of brackets, despite being between 18 and 27% odds-wise to win it elsewhere.
All right, there you have it. Mr. Will Warren's picks for the Final Four in the title game. I am going to make that leap in the East to start off my Final Four and go with St. John's over Duke. My biggest, I think they can beat Duke if they play Duke. I'm worried they will lose to Northern Iowa and it will look stupid on day one. So unfortunately, I have to run that risk. I guess it's a Friday night game, so day 2. But I'll take the chance. I think St. John's can make the run there. I'm going with Arizona out of the West. I like the setup for them. The fact that they're not going to face an elite defense. I think they can outsize Purdue. Going to ride with you on Michigan in the Midwest. Thought about Iowa State forcing a bunch of turnovers, getting into their decision making a little bit, but I'm going to stick with Michigan as well. And then Houston in the South. So we've got the two the same on the bottom of the bracket and differing on top. My title pick is going to be Arizona over Houston, rematch of the Big 12 title game. Can Arizona get a triple sweep of Calvin Sampson? Would this be the most depressing back-to-back title game losses? It's like the Buffalo Bills of college basketball if this were to happen. So that would be depressing for Houston, but just buying the Arizona team and the high floor plus high ceiling. Now they've got their whole 8-man rotation healthy. So there you have it. That's our picks. Let's close well with Tuesday night in the play-in games. We got NC State and Texas. We've also got the UMBC Howard game, which I am actually excited for. I'm like kind of pumped for that one. And feel free to pick any other NIT game that intrigues you.
Quickly, did you realize Houston's already lost back-to-back title games before?
Oh God, no! Did the Phi Slamma Jamma team do that?
NC State and Georgetown.
Jeez. Okay. Well, sorry, Houston. Sorry.
Because I did go looking because obviously Butler is the last team to do that back-to-back, but I didn't realize Houston had done it twice before.
Yeah, I didn't either.
That would be a huge bummer. Okay, tonight's games. I am going to go. I think I picked Howard to win the first 4 game over UMBC. They're going to generate a couple extra possessions, and in a dead even game, that does matter to me. It was the same reason I took Alabama State over, I think, St. Francis last year. I would lean them. I don't really feel like that's one with a ton of separation in either distance. So any little tiny margin I can take, I'll take it. The other one, I am going to lean Texas over NC State, which I don't love. The vibes for both are bad, but one of them will be defeating BYU.
Terrible.
So that little region actually, if Gonzaga weren't in it, it would remind me so much of the who is it? Wisconsin, LSU, Iowa State grouping from 4 years ago, where it was 3 just awful basketball teams, but somebody was legally required to make the Sweet 16, and it was Iowa
Yep.
State. Somebody is legally required to go to the Sweet 16 from that pod. It's obviously going to be Gonzaga as your most likely pick, but if like Texas or NC State goes on a run, nobody's going to be shocked. But I would pick Texas. Shot volume tracks as a pure draw, so I'm going to lean Texas because they are plus 6% from 2-point land against a tougher schedule than NC State. When all else is equal, I'd kind of go that route. But if you're going to tell me that NC State wins it just by having the much better backcourt, doesn't really shock me either.
Yeah. That we're talking bad vibes there. I get a little bit of flashback to the 2021 UCLA team that lost 4 straight entering the NCAA tournament, gets a playing game, and then goes on this shot-making tear and makes the Final Four, nearly beats undefeated Gonzaga. I just looked back at this because it's remarkable to me. They started the NCAA tournament 45th in KenPom.
Mm-hmm.
They finished it 13th because the Pac-12, everybody played good in the postseason. Like that was the year Oregon State made the Elite Eight.
USC.
I remember doing the I remember doing the math that like every team shot 50% from 3 in the postseason. And it was this rising tide. Like Utah didn't play a postseason game and they rose 25 spots in KenPom or something like that. It was completely absurd. But yeah, maybe you get one of these bad vibe teams to get hot like UCLA did that year. NC State's got like the swagger to suddenly start playing well and they start talking crap to the crowd. I'll pick NC State and I will pick UMBC. So we're head to head.
Sweet. NIT, I'll take a couple here. I like UC Irvine to take down UNLV. I think UCI is just going to be a little more motivated, especially given, they have a reasonable path to go back-to-back NIT Final Fours, which would be pretty cool.
Yep.
Others, I think Auburn takes care of South Alabama. I think it will be close, though. I wouldn't be shocked if that's like weirdly close. The other game among these that I'm actually quite looking forward to, Stephen F. Austin Tulsa seems like a lot of fun. I could really get into that. I would take Tulsa by like 6 or so, but seems like a really interesting game. I can't lie to you and be like, I'm going to watch these over the first 4, but I will at least flip the channel during halftime.
Yep, I'll keep an eye on them. I fly to Vegas in 5 hours. I will probably lay a wager down. What do you think, real quick, of Yale after they blew the Ivy title game? Are they going to be alive in this one against UNC Wilmington?
Disgusting, upsetting. So I'm going to save it for a separate show, my rant on why the Ivy tournament shouldn't exist. But I do kind of think like UNCW could run away with that just because Yale, they were literally, 10 seconds from a tournament bid?
I had, for some reason, I had the, okay, that's not for some reasons because I had a bet on the game, but I had the live odds up. They were minus like 20,000 to win with 11 seconds left, up 4. It was an epic collapse where they just made every wrong decision. They made their free throws and still blew it.
Yeah. So but now I will say there's an opposite end to this of like, could UNCW be really demoralized after getting blown out as the 1 seed? But I do agree, like Yale's vibes are going to be much worse. Like, how do you turn around 2 days later for a home game against a fairly good UNCW team after blowing what looked like a surefire tournament bid? That's going to be a really hard one to rationalize.
Yep. All right, that wraps it up. Any final thoughts, Will, on either the bracket or the tournament? Or I'm not going to have you do your Ivy tournament rant here, but anything else for the people before we let them go watch the NCAA tournament?
Top game of the round of 64. What would you have? Like your favorite?
Oh boy, it might be Louisville, South Florida. I'm really pumped for that one. Gosh, obviously VCU UNC is a really tight spread. It's not Clemson, Iowa. I'll tell you that much. You know what? I'll go Texas Tech, Akron.
I'm going to go Georgia, St. Louis. I don't think either of these teams can stop the other for a second. Georgia's press defense is fun and gives up 1 billion transition points. St. Louis can't stop a soul right now. So that one, if you were like, that game's going to be an 88-86 final, could completely believe it. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it's in the, like, I always think of the Thursday and Friday late nights, especially in the Eastern time, as the loopy zone, where it's like something weird usually happens in one of those late windows, and it's
Yep.
like either a major upset or like a game that just goes completely bonkers. And it feels like Georgia SLU is this year's game.
I think the Murray State San Francisco is a late night
Yes.
game on a Thursday, and also the late night Friday game, the Florida Colorado game that just went completely nuts. I think both teams hit triple digits in that game a few years back. It was a 7-10 game that was late night on a Friday. So yeah, I could definitely see the after dark getting weird between those two.
So, and just for a quick example, looking back here, Thursday night 2024, that was the Samford Kansas game, which was insane. Thursday night
Yep.
2023, just a quick look through it here. Nothing absurd with that one, but Tennessee did nearly blow a 20-point lead to Louisiana. Houston had a weird struggle fest with Northern Kentucky,
Oh,
too.
that's right. That game was weirdly I was like, wow, are we going to lose 1 seed to 16 here?
Yeah, almost two in the same tournament. And then, like you mentioned, 2022, San Francisco Murray, but also Akron nearly upsetting UCLA. So the late window on Thursday is unusually potent.
Yeah, and I'm almost positive Kentucky St. Peter's was a later Thursday night game too.
I think so.
So maybe it's late afternoon or something. But all right, that wraps it up for us here. We went long because we want people to have content before the NCAA tournament. Happy to talk all 4 regions with Will. Thank you to Trilly Donovan for our platform here and for setting up Basket Under Review. We love it. We're happy to contribute to it all season. We'll have some more, more like a season-ending referendum after the NCAA tournament. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Shout out to Corey Aldis, our producer behind the scenes, Sam Freyer for all the graphics at Basket Under Review, and his team, of course. To Home Field Apparel for sponsoring the show. And again, to all you listeners for tuning in, thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back next week breaking down the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. Until then, enjoy the basketball.